Have you ever found yourself always saying yes, even when you wanted to say no? It's a question that's all too familiar for many of us. It's the dilemma that sits at the heart of people-pleasing, a habit that can quietly consume our lives until we're left feeling burnt out, resentful, and disconnected from who we truly are. We're talking about that nagging urge to keep everyone around us happy, to avoid conflict, to be liked, often at the expense of our own happiness and well-being. It's the silent yes that slips out before we even have a chance to consider what we really want. It's the feeling of guilt or fear that creeps in when we think about voicing our own needs or desires. The problem with people-pleasing is that it's a one-way ticket to burnout. When we're constantly putting others' needs before our own, we're essentially pouring from an empty cup. We're sacrificing our own energy, time, and resources without replenishing them. And that's simply not sustainable. Over time, this cycle can lead to feelings of exhaustion, resentment, and even a loss of self-identity. And here's the kicker. While we might think that people-pleasing is making us more likable, it's often doing the opposite. It can lead to a lack of authenticity in our relationships as we're not truly expressing our feelings or needs. It can also build resentment as we're constantly giving without receiving in return. And ultimately, it can prevent us from living a life that's true to who we are. But here's the good news. It doesn't have to be this way. Breaking free from the cycle of people-pleasing is possible. And it starts with understanding the power of setting boundaries. If you find yourself nodding along, you're not alone. Many of us struggle with people-pleasing and setting boundaries. It's a common battle, but it's one that can be won. And the journey to winning it begins with recognizing the pitfalls of people-pleasing and taking the first steps towards setting boundaries. So let's dive in and explore how we can reclaim our power and live more authentically. So why is it so important for us to set boundaries? Let's delve into that. Imagine your life as a beautiful garden full of vibrant flowers and lush greenery. Now, how would you feel if someone walked through it, trampling over your flowers and leaving a path of destruction? Not too happy, right? Well, that's what happens when we don't set boundaries in our lives. We allow others to trample over our feelings, needs, and even our self-worth. Boundaries are like the fences around our garden. They protect us, our values, our time, and our mental energy from being trampled on. They ensure that we have the space to grow and flourish. Without boundaries, we're like a garden without a fence, vulnerable to any passerby who decides to take a shortcut. Now, you might be thinking that setting boundaries sounds selfish, but let's debunk that myth right away. Setting boundaries is not selfish, it's self-care. It's about understanding and respecting our own needs and limits and communicating them to others. It's about saying, "This is my garden, and here are the rules if you want to visit." Boundaries are crucial for our mental health. They prevent us from overextending ourselves, from burning out. They help us maintain our self-esteem and our sense of self-worth. They allow us to say no without guilt, to ask for what we need without fear. In relationships, boundaries create a clear understanding of what's acceptable and what's not. They foster respect and mutual understanding. They prevent resentment and misunderstanding. They create a healthy balance of give and take. Setting boundaries doesn't mean we don't care about others. Quite the opposite. It means we care about ourselves enough to protect our well-being and peace of mind. It means we value our relationships enough to keep them healthy and respectful. So, setting boundaries is not just about saying no, it's about saying yes to our own well-being, our own growth, and our own peace of mind. It's about creating a space where we can thrive and where our relationships can thrive too. Remember, setting boundaries is not about pushing people away, it's about creating a healthy space for yourself. Now, let's delve into the magnetic approach to boundary setting. This approach isn't about building walls or pushing people away. Rather, it's about creating a magnetic field around yourself that attracts respect and consideration from others. Picture a magnet. What makes it unique is its ability to attract or repel based on polarity. Similarly, when you set clear boundaries, you're essentially creating a polarity. You're establishing what behaviors you'll attract: respect, kindness, and consideration, and what you'll repel: disrespect, overstepping, and manipulation. So how do you go about creating this magnetic field? The first step is self-awareness. You need to know what your limits are. What makes you feel uncomfortable, stressed, or taken advantage of? These are your boundary lines. The next step is communication. Once you're clear about your boundaries, you need to communicate them effectively. It's not about being aggressive or confrontational. Rather, it's about expressing your needs and expectations in a clear, calm, and assertive manner. It's important to remember that while you cannot control others' reactions, you can control your response. If someone reacts negatively to your boundaries, that's their issue, not yours. Your responsibility is to yourself, to protect your well-being and peace of mind. This is where the third step, enforcement, comes into play. If people cross your boundaries, you need to enforce them. This could involve distancing yourself from those who consistently disrespect your boundaries or having a difficult conversation about their behavior. The magnetic approach empowers you to take control of your interactions with others. It helps you create healthy relationships based on mutual respect and understanding. The beauty of the magnetic approach is that it not only benefits you but also those around you. When you set clear boundaries, you're teaching others how to treat you. You're showing them what respect and consideration look like in action. With the magnetic approach, you'll find that people respect and value you more, not less. So how can you implement the magnetic approach in your life? Let's dive into the practical steps. Firstly, identify your boundaries. Reflect on the moments where you felt uncomfortable, taken advantage of, or simply exhausted. These moments are often a sign that your boundaries were crossed. Secondly, communicate your boundaries clearly. This might feel a bit uncomfortable, especially if you're not used to it. But remember, it's not about being confrontational. It's about expressing your needs respectfully. You might say something like, "I appreciate your request, but I can't accommodate it at this time." Keep it simple, direct, and non-negotiable. Thirdly, prepare for resistance. When you start setting boundaries, people might push back. They're used to you always saying yes. It's crucial to stay firm and repeat your boundary if necessary. You're not responsible for other people's reactions. You're responsible for your well-being. The fourth step is to practice self-compassion. Setting boundaries is a journey, not a destination. You'll stumble, and that's okay. Be kind to yourself during this process. Recognize your progress and celebrate your wins, no matter how small they may seem. The fifth step is to surround yourself with supportive people. Those who respect your boundaries will help you to enforce them. They'll provide the positive reinforcement you need to keep going. Lastly, remember that it's okay to adjust your boundaries as needed. Life changes, and so do we. What's important one day might not be the next. Be flexible and reevaluate your boundaries regularly. These steps are your roadmap to implementing the magnetic approach. It's a journey of self-discovery and growth, leading to a more balanced and fulfilling life. It's not just about saying no to others, but saying yes to yourself, your needs, and your well-being. Remember, the first step to stop people-pleasing starts with you standing up for yourself. So, we've covered quite a bit today about people-pleasing and boundary setting. It's been a journey, hasn't it? We've delved into why people-pleasing can be a trap and why setting boundaries is crucial for our mental and emotional well-being. In our exploration, we discovered the magnetic approach to boundary setting. This is not just about saying no to others, but also saying yes to ourselves. It's about magnetizing our self-respect, our time, and our energy. It's about becoming a magnet for positivity and respect instead of being a sponge for other people's demands and negativity. We also walked through some practical steps to implement this approach. Remember, starting small is the key. It's about gradual and consistent changes. It's about acknowledging our worth and asserting it. It's about communicating our boundaries effectively, without guilt or apology. Now, here's the exciting part. It's time for action. It's time to put these insights into practice. It's time to stop being a people pleaser and start being a self-respecter. It's time to start saying yes to yourself. It's time to draw your line in the sand and start setting boundaries. So, what's your first step? Maybe it's expressing your needs in a relationship, or perhaps it's carving out some me time in your busy schedule. Whatever it is, take that first step. It might be uncomfortable, but remember, growth often happens outside our comfort zone. And we're not stopping here. This is just the beginning. There's a wealth of knowledge out there waiting for you to tap into it. Explore more about boundary setting, self-respect, and emotional well-being. Keep learning, growing, and evolving. Start setting those boundaries, stop people-pleasing, and see how your life transforms. Thank you for watching, and remember, your well-being matters.